Good morning, everybody. Paul here coming at you with your crypto coffee update, which contains the following ingredients: crypto, coffee, an update, which includes news, events, conferences, and even more stuff. So now that you have your nutritional facts as to what this is going to contain, join me for a simultaneous sip of fresh coffee to get the episode started off right. Actually, can you see the coffee today? Can you? You totally can. There it is. Nice, fresh, hot cup of black coffee. Bean juice is what's for breakfast. Now, Cryptide.cc, it's available in front of you here, and we have some exciting changes coming in the next few weeks to 1 month. We have some interactables coming down the pipe for you, and this is just our way of putting our money where our mouth is and developing tools and resources for you, the dear community, to utilize to maximize your understanding and your ability to react to how the market is moving. And that in turn can be very beneficial so long as you are paying attention and doing your own research, ensuring that you are maximizing your own benefit from the resources we have available to you. Again, Cryptide.cc, check us out and keep an eye on it. Good stuff coming down the pipe. And now, speaking of good stuff, Samsung Galaxy S10, they're going to include a crypto wallet, or at least a blockchain wallet. Let's go ahead and explore what they have going on. Essentially, Samsung confirmed that they are going to be including Samsung Knox, which is a hardware-software feature. Technically, it will allow developers to make use of the feature by creating hardware wallets via software. And this is very exciting and very beneficial. After all, Samsung makes everything from refrigerators to dishwashers and, of course, everyone's favorite line of smartphones. Sorry, Apple fans, what are you going to do? But essentially, this is a really big boon for cryptocurrency enthusiasts all around the world, considering that this will allow individuals to specifically build blockchain applications and store private keys, as you can see here. Now, a small point of contention, not so much contention, considering this is going to assumingly be a major boon for the crypto space as a whole. After all, usability and accessibility is the precursor to daily use. However, storing this kind of information in software that is connected to the internet-capable devices without having some kind of layer of security that takes that portion of the phone offline can be dangerous. Said another way, this is another device built by Siren Labs, and an entity specifically in the crypto space. They built a device known as Finney. It's the world's first crypto-native smartphone, and they kind of tackled this in a bit of a different way. Let's Control F and see. Yep, essentially the private keys remain isolated from the phone's internet-enabled native wallet until the user slides the safe screen out and iterates the transaction. So there is an additional layer of security here in the Finney Phone relative to the Samsung Galaxy. However, let's be honest here, how many of you have heard of the Finney Phone? Nobody knows about it. I mean, people don't even really know what Siren Labs is. So the fact that this is a technically more secure device than the actual Samsung Galaxy S10 may be a moot point, considering everybody knows about Samsung, and the accessibility and usability of this wallet may ultimately, of course, trump something that is a smaller project explicitly dedicated to a more narrow use case. So with something like this, maybe you want to keep something like Smart Cash or something like Bitcoin Cash, which I'm repping today, just one of my many crypto shirts. Essentially, you want to keep a smaller amount perhaps in a wallet like this, a mobile wallet. That way you can ensure that you're not going to be subject to losing the vast majority of your funds. Ultimately, something like a Trezor or something like a Nano Ledger is going to be a more technically secure, physically secure wallet, but ultimately it's about different use cases for the day-to-day and ultimately what preference of security you have as an individual. So just information to keep you in the loop, keep you thinking about security, and ultimately doing your own research. And here's an image of the Finney Phone, just wanted to bring that up. It's a pretty nice, sleek looking phone. I mean, definitely not a bad device, but as I said, it's really not as well known. Very much has a specific use case. So maybe we'll see it blow up. Maybe ultimately it will be one of those trial by fire things where they're leapfrogged by larger entities in the space, but who knows? Now, speaking of hardware and technology, Bitmain has launched a new energy-efficient 7-nanometer ASIC chip for Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. As said, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, they utilize the same SHA-256 algorithm, so you build something for one, you're kind of building it for the other, at least in a hashing algorithm perspective, not so much for the applications that are built atop each respective chain. But that's not the main point. The main point is that Bitmain is building this thing, and it can hopefully, potentially help with the unprofitability problem that we're seeing in crypto now. It's not so much unprofitable for every individual, but it is only profitable in certain scenarios when energy prices are to certain points. They have to be low enough. And of course, there are economies at scale always at play, depending on how many machines you have running, what your power source is, what the energy cost is, how efficient these machines are, what maintenance cost you have on these machines. All of these are variables that will impact your bottom line as a crypto mining company. And ultimately, this is a 28.6% improvement potentially in power efficiency, which can very, very much help to ease one of those variables at least, which is the amount of energy required to solve one of these hashes or mathematical puzzles, which ultimately helps to secure the Bitcoin network for the chance of a reward in Bitcoin. So fantastic stuff there. Happy to see Bitmain moving along. But wait, not all is well in the Garden of Eden, known as Bitmain, because the S15, which is a slightly older model, is an Antmain miner. It's not necessarily good news here. Essentially, some researchers have discovered a hardware level security flaw in Bitmain's hardware. So ultimately what this means is if you have access to the machine, you could potentially do very nefarious things like change the address to which the crypto is being mined to. You can ultimately kind of mess up the how things are configured, such as changing what pool you're mining with. So this could be very detrimental, especially for razor thin profit margins that we already see in the crypto space. Now, of course, being that it's crypto, you can't not have drama. There's got to be some kind of nail-biting sort of thing going on. Oh, by the way, this is being called, where was it at? The previous vulnerability was called Antbleed, and this is being called Antsploit. So whenever you hear the word Antsploit, if this ends up sticking, this is what they will be referring to. Now back to the drama. Essentially, the individuals who found out, one guy's name is Hilliard and some anonymous guys named 00 White Rabbit, they're offering to disclose these vulnerabilities to Bitmain and help to patch it, but there's a catch. There's always a catch. Bitmain has to cease the ongoing violation of GNU, which is the General Public License Agreement. Essentially, these individuals responsible for isolating this vulnerability have said, look, you got to put this source code out so we can build on top of your work, essentially, which is very big in crypto, something we see all the time. The GPL and GNU are license agreements that allow individuals to do certain augmentations to the base code without putting themselves at legal risk, essentially. It's something we see, again, in a lot of different projects in crypto, and this is what these individuals want from Bitmain. Now, this could potentially be a weird point of contention, considering that Bitmain was talking about an IPO, so they do have some semblance of fiduciary responsibility, if not to existing investors, to individual prospective investors who want to see that responsibility lived up to. So if they release this kind of information, it's a weird balancing act between will the release of this information and the potential actualized loss from divulging trade secrets offset the potential loss of the S15 chips being vulnerable to this kind of exploitation. And these individuals did say that they will basically loose all hell and let everybody know themselves what this vulnerability is if Bitmain doesn't comply. So pretty intense point of contention. Bitmain is a multi-billion-dollar industry, huge entity in the space, so lots of implications here. We'll keep you posted as we move forward, since this is really all we have for the time being. Now, Crypto Potato, I love their little logo, it's adorable. Crypto daily volume is on the rise. Highest volume we've seen since April 2018 bodes well. Remember, we just had JP Morgan coin announced, so this could potentially be a driving force for the uptick in volume, but it remains to be seen. After all, this is mostly speculation with this kind of stuff. There's no definitive way to tell who is buying what and where at what time, since blockchain is semi-obfuscatory, and ultimately the amount of time needed to isolate all of those variables is super prohibitive. So ultimately we can just take it at face value and say that crypto daily volume is on the up and up. It's the highest since April 2018. Now, while we can't isolate every particular variable in the space, we can look at certain variables that may or may not add credulity or remove credulity from such claims. Let's take a look at KuCoin, and this is something that was dropped about 24 hours ago. KuCoin has seen a leak of emails that they were sending out to coins that were listed on their exchange saying, look, you don't have sufficient volume to remain listed on KuCoin. That is very unfortunate. So for the low price of $180,000, we here at KuCoin can fake your volume, something that is very, very shady, to say the least, potentially illegal depending on your jurisdiction and depending on precedent that's been set. And it seems as though there's an individual here, they redacted his first name, but he's actually the official market maker of KuCoin. Now, for those of you who don't know, a market maker is an individual who, as the name suggests, makes the market or creates some demand or some supply to facilitate transactions between individuals or to kind of prop up those numbers to elicit more individuals to participate. This is something that is super illegal in the United States and most other developed countries. However, in, I guess, more Wild West regions such as China and to a lesser extent Korea, you're seeing a lot of this kind of activity promulgate throughout the community, and ultimately it does not leave a good taste in the mouth for those individuals who are trying to support projects that they believe have legitimate use case and legitimate communities behind them. After all, if you see millions of dollars in volume being traded back and forth for a respective project, human intuition would lead you to believe that these are real individuals. However, as we can see here, that is not always the case. Here's some clips from the emails that were received from these individuals, and ultimately it seems as though this is indeed something that's happening. No word from KuCoin yet. But they did say they were pretty sure it never offered market making services, which really isn't even a comment in earnest. It's not something that actually addresses the issue and takes it serious. Like, oh, we're pretty sure we didn't do that, whatever. That's not good at all. So ultimately, this is why watching out for these kind of exchanges, watching out for these wash trading activities, and ultimately checking out resources like Crypto Exchange Ranks, which is backed by Hacken. They are fantastic. They do a lot of great transparency hacking, letting individuals in the space know what's going on, what's secure, what's not, and what growth and volume may or may not be legitimate per se. So they're doing great work. Check them out if you want more information on this kind of thing, because it's not going away anytime soon. And we here at Cryptide are working diligently to provide you fantastic resources to combat this kind of thing. And as I said, keep an eye on cryptide.cc because those resources are shaping up beautifully. Now, we also have a crypto cloud mining Ponzi. Not too surprising there. Crypto cloud mining was huge back in the day when Bitcoin's difficulty was much lower and it was much less well known. However, the voracious nature of ASIC mining, which is application-specific integrated circuits, or ASICs, they're specifically geared towards mining these cryptos, and they are, as stated previously, razor thin in their profit margins. So having a cloud mining or mining contract sort of configuration is most of the time, the vast majority of the time, unprofitable and is a relic of a bygone era. So individuals are using other people's relative lack of knowledge about the space to profit off them in an unscrupulous manner. 140 victims in Thailand allegedly scammed out of $1.3 million, huge amount of capital. And as said, this isn't something going away. Luckily, it seems as though the Thai government is on the case and trying to get these individuals their money back. However, a lot of the times, as said, these individuals don't know that these kind of things are scammy unless you do your own research and ultimately ensure that an investment is prudent and sound. And really, the only thing that can ensure that is due diligence. And you can see here in the FBI is seeking potential victims in the BitConnect investigation. For those of you who may not recall, BitConnect was a Ponzi scheme that ultimately made it to the top 10 crypto projects in the world, offering 1% per day, every day, which if you can do basic math and understand compounding interest, which has been said to be the most powerful force in the world, there's no possible way they would ever be able to pay off everybody. So what they did was just kind of sort of pay off the existing users with new users coming in, also known as a Ponzi scheme. So that's not good. This just goes to show how important doing your own research is and applying some basic critical thought to claims that ultimately sound outlandishly wonderful and wild, because as the old idiom goes, if it sounds too good to be true, most of the time it is. And a lot of these things are so sneaky and slimy that you don't see them off the bat. Okay, cool thing. My hat, right? See that? It's a nice symbol. I thought, hey, that hat is cool. I'm going to pick that hat up. You know, it's a couple bucks. Pick it up, put it on. Great stuff. Fantastic. Lo and behold, I did some due diligence, and this symbol is actually associated with a multi-level marketing scam. For those of you who don't know, multi-level marketing scams have a less statistical chance of success, essentially. I think it's 0.83% of individuals will succeed with multi-level marketing, i.e. turn a profit, whereas 2.whatever% of individuals who gamble turn a profit. So this thing is ultimately less profitable than gambling and a scam. I'm not going to name the multi-level marketing scheme, but suffice to say, look at that, a visual example. A lot of the times things can be right in your face that represent scams or try and elicit your support, and they're not they don't have your best interest at heart. Only you have your best interest at heart, dear user, so do your own research. It's so important. Now, back to the SEC, rather than the FBI, they are looking to expand the Test the Waters modernization reform for all issuers, not just security tokens and ICOs. They want to expand this reform they're looking at for all potential securities and allow individuals to communicate with prospective investors in a more flexible manner to elicit information and potential interests, and ultimately potentially save a lot of these individual entrepreneurs time, considering that currently there are many regulations, red tape, and stipulations as to how you can communicate your value proposition to various potential investors, and if you say the wrong thing or act in the wrong manner, you are ultimately opened up to a lot of liability. So this Test the Waters modernization being extended to all potential securities, or at least specific projects that may or may not classify as securities, ultimately can help to bring the world of finance and securities into the modern era, in which the flexibility of communication can be used to its maximum potential and allow entrepreneurs to get an idea or a barometer as to interest before they ultimately launch their project. So really cool stuff there. Really excited to see what ultimately comes out of this SEC overhaul, and if it is extended, yeah, we'll keep you posted on that as well, since after all, securities law, especially in the mammoth economy of the United States, is pertinent to users all around the world, specifically the Western world and beyond. Now, a Swiss bank, UBS, not Bitcoin, which of course a bank isn't Bitcoin, fined $5.1 billion for money laundering. This is something we're seeing more and more. These large financial institutions are being backed into corners now that quantitative easing is kind of tightening up a little bit. And all of this money sloshing around the world's largest financial institutions is starting to be looked at with more scrutiny. Some things are coming to light, right? I mean, we heard of Wells Fargo being charged with their huge money laundering issues. Deutsche Bank is complicit. You have, what is it, Riske Bank from Denmark, I believe. They have huge money laundering over to Russia, even though there were sanctions involved. So it's just a mess. And I found this sentence particularly interesting. The court can only conclude that the bank consistently put its own financial interests over the sovereign rights of the French state. And that's something that is sound via international law. After all, the French state, if they grant the license to do business to UBS, ultimately has proprietorship over the institution in not only de facto but de jure, considering France controls the legal system. However, it ultimately begs the question of human action, and of course an entity that has fiduciary responsibility will, to some extent, try to have their own financial interests over anything else, potentially even that of their short-term clients, considering those who provide the capital to run the institution on the day-to-day basis are largely high-net-worth clients. And this is how the Zurich-based bank was trying to solicit individuals of high net worth in a method to try and help them dodge taxes. It's called dodging taxes, but ultimately I think all individuals try to minimize their tax burden to the smallest reasonable amount. We all have to pay something, considering, you know, social contract, etc. However, minimizing the tax burden isn't intrinsically morally wrong, nor is it in the worst interest of the individual who's paying. And the fact that this bank is based in Zurich, I found particularly interesting, since it's a Parisian court that ruled that, well, ultimately they didn't have the interest of the French state at heart. So it's a peculiar instance and begs the question of how Switzerland and France are interacting in terms of banking regulation, and ultimately a more philosophical question about fiduciary responsibility and individual tax obligation. There are no clear answers. I mean, there are huge bodies of text written about the philosophical implications we've discussed here, but nonetheless cool stuff, and definitely makes me think of Anthony Popliano's interesting statement that he says, which is long Bitcoin, short the bankers. And if they're going to cost you $5.1 billion, I think a short position may be justified here. By the way, not financial advice, just your buddy Paul talking, speculating about interesting things that we see here in the markets. And now MyEtherWallet is going to be launching a fiat withdrawal with no know your customer regulation needed, which is really cool. This also begs the question, considering that they partnered with a group that has Bitcoin ATMs, as to whether or not they will allow you to withdraw fiat currency from these ATMs without know your customer, or if it will require the prerequisite of a bank attached to your account. Because if so, the bank themselves will assumingly require know your customer regulation, thereby meaning that this is still true. MyEtherWallet won't require KYC, but the banking institution that you must have as a preclusion to interacting with MyEtherWallet's fiat withdrawal portal may well need your information. So there's some speculation here as to how this may play out, but if they indeed live up to this picture and allow you to withdraw fiat currency without a know your customer protocol in place. This could be a huge boon for the freedom of transaction in terms of cryptocurrency for individuals in Switzerland specifically. Again, Zurich popping up. We have Basel and Zug. Is it Basel or Basel? Somebody from Switzerland or Europe, let me know. Is it Basel or Basel? But suffice to say, nonetheless, individuals living in that city and more will be able to access crypto ATMs. And again, not sure if it'll let you get cash out or if you have to have a bank attached, but still, know your customer on the part of MyEtherWallet themselves makes them come out looking squeaky clean and definitely draw some of those watchful eyes to MyEtherWallet, and potentially could be a great boon for the service as a whole. So great stuff there, guys, and I believe that is all we have for the day. Thanks so much for watching. Seriously, you guys are the wind in my sails. You keep me going and you support Cryptide's efforts, and I appreciate it. I really do. You guys are wonderful. As I said, keep an eye out on Cryptide CC. We have some great tools in the works here. Really excited for the announcement. You can tell I'm kind of giddy about it, but you know, got to hold my tongue after all. Just like your private keys, got to keep information secure sometimes. So keep an eye out in the future, in the next 3 weeks to a month, as to what's coming down the pipe. But thanks again, guys. My name is Paul. We are Cryptide, and remember, the tide is rising, as is the functionality of our lovely website.